And we're looking good, you'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Carlisle United, the team that's on the ball. Carlisle United, the team all want to know. You're looking good, and we're with you all the way. You'll hear us singing every time you play.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Brunton Bugle, a podcast focusing on the trials and tribulations of Carlisle United Football Club. From David Reeves to Jack Round and Danny Livesey to David Lee, we've got it covered. This is episode 29. Today we're going to be reviewing the 1-0 loss at Forest Green, United's first defeat in 5 games, previewing the first 2 fixtures of the busy Christmas period against Bolton Wanderers and Harrogate Town, and looking at what ex-United players have been getting up to with a little bit of news thrown in as well. As usual, I'm joined by a co-host in this episode, and today it's Dan. Dan, how's it going, mate?
Yeah, not bad. Just about ready for Christmas. Happy that somehow Carlisle stayed in Tier 2 today.
Yeah, I think we were all sort of anticipating there was going to be a change then. I thought it was going to be typical. I'm going to be sat in Tier 2 in Liverpool, but Carlisle's going to be Tier 4 or something.
Yeah, I mean, Robert Peston from ITN actually tweeted that it looked like Cumbria was going to go into, and it just never happened. So
yeah, bit of a surprise that one. Yeah, I'm guessing you can guess the link with the players there, can you?
Well, it's not Harrogate, is it?
There was a few from Harrogate. There wasn't enough to do the thing, but there was a few. But yeah, obviously it's Bolton's the link. Some more obvious ones. Obviously David Reeves, everyone knows him, former record signing. Danny Livesey, one of, I think is it third highest, something like that? Oh no, he's in the top 10, isn't he, appearance makers?
Yeah.
For the club's in the club's history. David Lee had a short spell with us. Start of the 2001 season, I think it was, under
He was a bit underused, wasn't he?
He looked quality when he came on in games, didn't he? A really good player. Now, Jack Round's an interesting one. You won't recognise that name probably, Dan. Jack Round played for us in the 1930s. Now, he started his career at Bolton, but he also played at Port Vale and then came to Carlisle United. He holds a quite unusual sort of unique distinction. It's almost unique. There's one other person who holds this. It's not even holds it really, but he's one of only 2 players who've died while they were playing for Carlisle United. Not obviously on the pitch, but as in that would be grim, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But no, they were still playing for the club when they died. And
right.
It's an interesting story. Maybe do a bit more in depth on another podcast. This one. It sounds a bit grim, but it is quite fascinating because his death was the result of that. I think it was appendicitis, and he from an injury picked up in a FA Cup game against Stockport County, and he was out for a month. And some of the players actually gave their blood in blood transfusions to help him, but he died on New Year's Eve, and Carlisle played on New Year's Day. And there was like a minute's silence to play Abide With Me and all kinds of stuff, and it was on the front page of the Daily Mirror. That's how big it was at the time. Yeah. So quite an interesting story, that one. We'll look a bit more in depth into that, and maybe we'll do we're going to do some specials, aren't we, at some point?
Eventually.
Where we're going to do little interesting stories like that.
Probably when the next lockdown comes and there's no football, we'll get some done.
Yeah, I'd imagine it'll be then probably, yeah. All right, then let's get straight into the news then, Dan. So just one bit of news today, isn't it, really? And that's the reserve game at Rochdale this week. So it was a brace for trialist Scott as the reserves run riot at Rochdale. So United finally managed to play a reserve fixture this week after the postponement of last week's fixture against Fleetwood. They managed to do it because they switched their Central Cup tie against Rochdale to Spotland rather than playing at Penrith, because I think Penrith's got some issues at the moment in terms of waterlogging.
Yeah, there's been a lot of water around Penrith.
So they moved it down. It proved a smart move, didn't it, really? Because they ran out 5-0 winners against Dale. So obviously you mentioned trialist Chedwin Scott last week, didn't we? Did his chances no harm of earning a contract, did he really? A couple of goals?
Scored a couple of goals, had a couple of other decent chances. And
looked lively, didn't he?
Highlights. He certainly looked worth a go to the end of the season, didn't he?
Absolutely. And I mean, it's interesting. We watched back the highlights. You picked out Mika Obiera, didn't you? You were quite impressed with the way. I mean, it's only a few highlights, but he looked lively. You can't
sort of judge the quality of the Rochdale team because we don't know too much about them. But certainly Obiera showed quite a bit and seemed to be enjoying himself down the right hand side. Yeah, he looked quite lively.
I think of the loan signings who are left, I think he's probably the one who's probably got the best chance of staying a bit longer, but I'm still not convinced he will, to be honest.
Yeah.
But interesting as well that Taylor Charters was captain for this game, wasn't he?
Yeah,
because
interesting one.
there's been some talk that he might be heading out on loan and stuff like that recently, hasn't there? Whereas he played pretty well, got a couple of goals, didn't he? And
when you
did
think
quite
the
well.
likes of McDonald and Furman were playing, it's
Well, it's interesting because Beach made a point, didn't he, in one of his interviews in the last week about the fact that both Dixon and Charters said to him, "Don't sign a midfielder. We're ready to step in when we want." And you almost wonder if that Beach may be saying to Charters and to Dixon, saying, "Right, go and show me then that you are capable of stepping up." And I mean, Charters couldn't do much more. Captain in the team, I think, scoring 2 goals, looked pretty lively from all the highlights we saw. And,
yeah, definitely.
I'd much rather see him on the bench than a Conor Malley, wouldn't you?
Come on, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's good to have the odd loan player, but we haven't had much luck with them this year. Dewhurst's just sort of warmed the bench mainly. Malley got injured, Walker got injured, Obiero's had bits and pieces.
Coyote's the only one who's been consistent.
Coyote's the only one. He's a step ahead of them, isn't he?
Yeah, he is indeed. Interesting to all see that first year YTS Sam Fishburn continued his good scoring streak and got a goal for the reserves in this game too.
He looks a big lad as well, doesn't he?
Doesn't he? He doesn't look like a first year YTS.
There's shades of a Medine or something about him, isn't there? He looks ready already. As we were saying, it wouldn't be a surprise if someone like Fishburn, he's obviously, his Beach is well aware of him already. If he got similar to Lewis Bell got this season, and
I wonder if
it might be finish your second year YTS and you've got a guaranteed year with option.
Yeah, you'd think so. He looks like he's potentially ready to make the step up, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the reserve game covered. So let's get straight onto the match review for the Forest Green Rovers game, because we've got a lot to fit in this episode, haven't we? So we might as well get straight into it. So Forest Green Rovers 1, Cal United 0. United missed out on a chance to go into Christmas top of the league as they suffered a narrow defeat to fellow promotion contenders Forest Green Rovers at the weekend. It always looked like this was going to be probably the toughest test that we'd face this month. I mean, everyone might look at Bolton and think that, but this did look like the most difficult game, didn't it? And it sort of proved that, I suppose, with the way it was. It was a very closely matched game against two sides battling out. And at the end of the day, scrappy goal's the one that's won it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Beach said that. He said in his post match at half time, he said to them, this is the sort of game that's one sort of scrappy goal could win it. Let's go and get it. Unfortunately, it was Forest Green who got it.
It's a bit of a surprise, wasn't it, that the player who probably made the mistake, really. If it was Reece Bennett, he just got a bit too tight on Matt, didn't he? Allowed him to turn and just bundle in. Looking
at the stats, we still had plenty of shots, only a couple of them were on target, but we still created 13, half a dozen corners. We just... It was one of those that I've mentioned before, and we both have, and Alessandra had a quiet game.
Yeah.
And when Luis Alessandra has a quiet game, we tend to attacking wise.
Yeah. Well, we'll get onto that in a minute, because we want to discuss about the change that was made to the team with Mellish's absence. But, basically the result saw Rovers leapfrog us. They've gone up into second place, but we're still in the top 3 going into the Boxing Day fixtures on 35 points in third place from 19 games. League leaders Newport slipped up, didn't they? Frustrating that, isn't it? They slip up against Oldham and we didn't take advantage. So they lost 4-2 at home to Oldham. Cheltenham, they blew a big chance as well to push us back into the playoff places by losing 3-0 at managerless Barrow. That was just a result no one saw coming, really, wasn't it? It was a bizarre one.
That was your typical, the manager's gone, let's put on a performance, wasn't it?
That must be infuriating, that.
Just before we started recording, Barrow announced that Michael Jolly will be their new manager.
That's an interesting appointment, that, isn't it? I don't know what the standard of applicant they had for the job, but is he the man who's going to drag you out of trouble?
Been speaking to someone down there, and I'm led to believe there was some very good names in the mix. So whether it's come down to finance, Michael Jolly would probably be cheaper than some of the names that appeared in the list. Someone
mentioned to me that sometimes what you have a problem is when there's more than one manager job available, and one of those jobs is better than the other. The better managers might play the smaller club off to try and convince the bigger club to take them on. They might hint to Bradford, well, Barrow potentially offer me a deal here, and then Barrow, Bradford is panicking, thinking, I'm gonna have to, and maybe they're not that interested. It's a difficult one, but it doesn't. Put it this way: if it was in our position and we appointed Jolly, I'm not sure I'd be particularly impressed, if I'm honest. I know obviously people weren't overly enamoured when Beach got the job last year, but Beach at least had years of experience coaching at our level as well, and you had an idea what you were getting there. Okay, well, let's get straight into the some of the talking points. Not too many about the actual game itself, really. I'll be honest with you, I didn't really see much of it because I was out being Santa Claus. I was dropping off all the presents to friends and relatives on Saturday, so I didn't really catch much of the game.
I hope you were socially distant while doing so.
I was indeed, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, or just basically dropping them off on doorsteps.
Yeah.
Essentially chucking presents like an
photo,
Amazon driver.
Taking a photo and sending it to them on WhatsApp.
Yeah, exactly that. So not a huge amount to pick up from this. It's strange because there's a few chances in there, but it was quite a tight game, as we mentioned. Was physicality a big issue in this game, maybe? Because it's something, obviously, that we are well known for this season, being a physical, strong side, and there were some who probably felt Mellish hadn't been contributing enough in recent games, but and a rest that might do him good. But I think that was probably the one thing noticeable from this game that was missing was Mellish in midfield. I think. What do you think?
I think when we all saw the team, we were like, "Oh, that looks attacking."
Yeah,
that was the first sort of. Was it more a 4-2-3-1? We were all thinking.
I think it probably was. I mean, the problem with that is obviously you pull Riley back a bit further. You also drop Alessandro a bit deeper, and I think he's been so much better as the centre forward recently, and he's made his tick. And it's harsh on Toure, but because he looked like he had a decent game and was probably unlucky not to score a couple of goals. I mean, he had one disallowed for no reason. It was a ridiculous decision. I don't know what the officials were thinking there. And he had a couple more where the keepers make some really smart saves, or he put one just wide, didn't he? I think late on. But to be honest, he's going to be dropped probably for the Boxing Day game because you just bring Mellish back in, don't you, and go back to tried and tested, really. That's the way I look at it anyway. Should he maybe put Thurman in there?
I said before match that I would have picked Thurman for it, anticipating a tough game. And people were like, well, he's a bit too similar to Guy, but I would rather have played Thurman and Guy and pushed Riley forward a little bit. Yeah,
and then you got Alessandro as your focal point, holding the ball up and playing off him, and we maybe missed that a little bit. I think we probably did miss Mellish just bundling about on midfield and causing a bit of chaos, really. It was a bit... Yeah. They're a very good technical team, Forest Green. You can see that. You can see why they do so well. We didn't really have enough in there roughing them up, I don't think, maybe. But it's one of the... We weren't a million miles away. It's not like we... I just think I think it would have made that little bit of difference, having Mellish in the team, I think, for this game. So yeah, I think we're sort of in agreement there that I think actually Mellish was missed, and I think maybe people are starting to see the attributes he brings to the team, not just his goals, but he's also just a real presence in there. That he does make a difference. Okay, well, let's move on to the next one. So, I mean, there's a couple of questions here that have been asked by Ross Parkinson on Beaches and Finor. In fact, people have been asking these ones actually for a while, so that's just the person I spotted who put it up, so that's the reason why I mentioned him. First up, let's start with this one. So, the Coyote return. So, I mean, it sounds like we a few weeks ago were thinking that Coyote's probably not going to go back. I think they'd rather have him here and, learning his trade and playing regularly. But there's some whispers now, isn't there, that Paul Warne is potentially looking at bringing him back to Rotherham to actually use him for them.
If you search his name on Twitter, there's a couple of... I think there was one article by a Rotherham fan who does sort of similar stuff to us, and then Coyote was actually interviewed by the Rotherham paper.
Yeah.
And he retweeted it today. And it's just shades of a Jenny Yates scenario coming, isn't it?
Yeah. There is. It's frustrating, isn't it? But it's one of those things. He's not been quite as spectacular in terms of goals that Yates was towards the end of his spell with us. But his all-round game's just been excellent, I think, in recent weeks. He really has started to step up, and he looks like a real player, and he's shown he's adaptable. He can play out wide. He can play down the middle. Do you think do you think we'd miss him quite badly if he went?
I don't think we'd miss him.
I think it'd be difficult to replace, to get a player who's ready to come in. You might end up with a player like the Coyote that you got in January.
Yeah.
Who was still looking a bit raw and still not quite 100% there yet.
Or if he does go back, do we see Patrick switch to the right and hopefully Brennan Dickinson return?
Possibly, or you can have Toure down the left, can't you? And put Alessandro down the middle. So there are options there. It's not the end of the world. We've got Ethan Walker to come back as well. Yeah. It's not the end of the world, but I think obviously if he went back, I think you'd definitely be looking to get another striker in, I think. Obviously depending on whether they decide to sign Chedwin Scott or not. But I think Scott is a different sort of player. He's more like a Gavin Riley, isn't he, I think? So I think those two be competing for one place, which would be rotten luck for Gavin Riley. Just hasn't really fallen for him yet,
It just hasn't fallen. I mean, I make no secret of I rate him as a player, but currently the way we set up doesn't
suit his game, does it?
Doesn't lend it to his game, does it? No,
it just doesn't suit his game. I think we're sort of both in agreement. It will be tough if Coyote goes back, but it's not like a couple of years ago when Yates went back. I think we're in a much better position to just deal with it, and other players can slot in and we can potentially look at getting another loan player, and I think we're a lot better placed.
One thing which may go in our favour is you don't know what the finances are at other clubs, and if Rotherham do decide to let him stay, you know, we're going to be pretty safe in the fact that we'll be able to pay for him, you know. Yeah.
Well, the suggestion seems to be that he'd go back to feature on the bench for them potentially. They've been that impressive.
Which is exactly what Yates did. He had. I remember Yates. Rotherham had 2 or 3 injuries up front, and Yates had 2 or 3 games for them, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. It would be sod's law if that happened, really, wouldn't it? Because just one of those things. But like I said, I agree. I think we're a bit better placed this year to deal with it than we have been in previous years. I think the squad that Beach has put together, you lose one part of it, it doesn't completely collapse, does it, in front of your eyes? I think we're a lot better placed in terms of that. Okay, well, let's move on to the next one that Russ asked, actually, and it's about the contract situation. We said we were going to discuss it, so we'll maybe just quickly go through this one, Dan. So in terms of players who are out of contract in the summer, who do you think is probably the most urgent that we need to get tied down now?
I'm trying to think back to who's on 1 years with... Have you got a list?
Yeah, I've got a list up here, Dan. I mean, and the obvious one that first stands out is Rhys Bennett. Now, Transfermarkt seems to suggest that his contract is up on 31st of January, which gives us a little bit more breathing room than we probably thought we had. I'm not sure how correct that is, but we'll have to wait and see. I mean, that one just needs to be sorted, doesn't it? Basically, just lock him in a cupboard for ages.
As we said previously, you know, I mean, we've been the one to give him his chance again. You know, even if he just says, "I'll sign to the summer" and maybe try and get a promotion on my CV. Yeah,
it's interesting that according to Transfermarkt, Rhys Bennett has the same agents as Josh Coyote and Rod McDonald. Now, I don't know how accurate that is, but it seems to be. So that's interesting, that. Yeah. In terms of the ones whose contracts are up, so Dean Furman, his contract's up in the summer. I think that one you just got to wait on, really, because he's not getting game time. There's no point in tying him down longer than you have to. Luis Alessandra, I think I'd look to start talking already. I think he's got an option in there. I think so. Potentially, if you can trigger that, just tie him down. He's a player who can easily play at the level above with the quality he has on the ball, I think.
Yeah.
And even if he's not playing regularly at the level above, he's a good squad player, isn't he?
Yeah,
you know that. Paul Farman, I think I'd probably one of those ones of his age. Maybe you're not in as much of a rush.
Keep us play a bit longer though, don't they?
So. True. So maybe you could sort that out soon. I mean, Gavin Riley. I mean, that you've just got to wait on that one. I think to see what happens in the second half of the season. Callum Guy, I think that's
a no-brainer.
No-brainer. Just get it done. It's like Bennett. Get it done. Although I think he might have an option possibly in there. So
and I know when all these were announced, Holdsworth always mentions that the options are in our favour.
Yeah. Nick Anderson. I like him, but I think I'd be happy to maybe wait on that one. I don't know if there's an option again. I think there is. I'm not 100%.
I think he was 18 months with option, wasn't he? Same as Guy.
Now, Aaron Hayden's down here has been one. I thought Aaron Hayden signed a new deal not that long ago, but I'm not 100% on that one. I'm going to double check on that. In fact, he signed a new contract that keeps him there till the summer of 2021. I'm guessing there must be an option in there as well. I think.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at the rest. So Joe Riley, again, you probably wait for now, I think, but he's done pretty well. So he's got an option again, hasn't he? That's the thing. This is the thing. They've all got options, and if there's options there, you can afford to be patient because you just trigger it when you're happy, or if you think they've done really well and you want to reward them, you give them a better deal with another option in it. Amari Patrick, I think I'd like to get him tied down longer. I think he's looked really good this season. I think he's worth a longer deal. It still baffles me that Bradford fans didn't rate him at all, really.
Yeah.
The more you see of him. John Mellish is down here. I'm sure he signed a new contract, didn't he? Not that long ago. So that's not right.
Yeah.
Jack Armour, still too early, I think, with that one. Gimme Toure, I probably would have said a while back, but at the moment, I think I'd wait and see.
Going back to Mellish, summer 2022, I have a feeling there's an option on
there's
that.
There's definitely
as well.
an option, I remember that. So yeah, we're fine with John Mellish. Gimme Toure, I think I'd wait for a bit at the moment. I think if you'd asked me a few weeks into the season, I might have been saying get him tied down, but he's got to find that consistency, hasn't he? He's got to get a goal, really, hasn't he? That's the thing. It's ever since you haven't seen him in Asda anymore that he seems to have gone wrong for him.
Well, this is it, So on the off chance you're listening, Gimme, I'll meet you in the cheese aisle.
Max Hunt, I think you can wait on that one, can't you? I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up the way it's going. He probably end up going in the season at this rate.
If Bennett stays, it wouldn't be a surprise if Hunt possibly went on loan.
Yeah, it would make sense, wouldn't it?
Because he needs game time.
Yeah. Looking down, the rest of the ones who are out of contract this season are all the young lads, basically. So you've got Tom Wilson, Jamie Armstrong, Charlie Birch,
Charlie Barnes and Liam Lightfoot.
Those five. It's just a wait and see with that, isn't it, really, I think?
Yeah. I mean, they have been playing for Kendall when Kendall have been able to play.
They missed the game the other night, though, because they played in the reserve
game. They missed the game last night because they played in the reserve game for Carlisle. So.
Yeah, I mean, it makes more sense to use them in that, doesn't it, I think, to be honest. But, and then, other than that, there's Taylor Charters and Josh Dixon. Again, it's just a wait and see sort of thing, isn't it? But I think I'd like to see them both tied down on longer deals because I mean they've shown that they're a step above the other young lads at the moment. So yeah, I think going back through it, I mean the only ones we would say is Bennett, Guy, and Furman. And Hayden. Really, the three that I would be prioritising, and probably Alessandra.
That's almost the spine of a team, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Really,
if you chucked Farman in there, that is the spine of your team, isn't it? So.
Yeah. So like we said, basically we're saying Bennett, Alessandra, Guy, and Hayden. Essentially, is what you really want to see there. So yeah, that's our view on the contracts. Rumbled on a little bit there, didn't we? But there you go. This is an interesting one. The last bit from the match preview stuff. Again, it's not like a match specific question, but it's more a question from Regan Thompson here asking, what do we feel are the big difference between this side and Curl's side 3 seasons ago that made the playoffs, obviously got beat by Exeter? It's an interesting question, isn't it? Because it probably is the nearest comparison in recent years. I think this is because it's a step ahead of the Sheridan team, and the Sheridan team was just out sort of teetering, wasn't it, really, at that point, whereas Curl's team was flying going into Christmas and properly dropped off, obviously, when Wyke left.
I think we've mentioned it before that the major difference is we were probably a bit semi-reliant on Wyke back then.
And Adams.
Yeah. And it's, obviously, we as good as our front line have been, Alexandra's the top scorer of them, isn't he? There's goals all around our team, if you know what I mean. We've got.
They're not free scoring, are they? Not like a Wyke who's just basically get himself in there.
We've got centre backs who can, nod a corner, free kick in.
Didn't really have that under Curl, did we? When you think about it, Rangers didn't score many. So it's interesting. And I tend to agree. I think in terms of squad depth, I think we're a bit stronger now. I think in terms of the balance of the squad, especially as well. You think towards the end of that season under Curl, some of the squads in terms of players we had on the bench in those final games was pretty appalling, wasn't it, actually, when you look back at it? I think there was some absolutely awful play. I mean, was that season of Joachim, wasn't it? Or am I imagining that? Or was that season afterwards?
There was that many.
I have a feeling it was Joachim, because I don't
was
remember.
Was it the one where Hooper and Ward came in?
Yes, because they didn't wear Umbro kits. I can't remember them wearing Umbro kits. So
yeah,
you had Hooper, you had Ward, you had Tomlinson, you had Joachim.
It seemed to be just chuck a dart and hope on sticks.
Difference is this season we've got young lads ready to come in if we really need to. And we talked about this before. Curl had zero interest in the youth team at Cardiff.
Oh yeah.
Basically,
I always remember he actually did watch a game once, and there was a load of fanfare made about it, which just sort of hammered it home even more.
Yeah, if the manager's not making an effort to go and watch them, it doesn't really tell you much, does it? Whereas you see the like light and day difference with Beach, isn't it? He's taking an interest. He's getting them involved in matchday squads. He really wants them to be a part of the team, doesn't he? And he's giving them chances in the team when he gets the opportunity. I mean, Trotters came on towards the end on Saturday, and he could have brought other players on, but he threw him on and got himself booked with a bit of a reckless challenge. But that's what you want to see. You want to see players who are not afraid of putting the foot in. I think we're in a much better place, because I think, in comparison, if we lose Coyote compared with losing Wyke, we can still put together 2 or 3 different front lines, can't we, that will do a job and cause problems for teams. Whereas once we lost Wyke, we put Proctor in, and Proctor didn't play every game, did he? You remember that? He missed a few games with injury.
The problem was we never replaced Wyke, did we?
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. We just didn't replace Charlie Wyke. That was the big problem. Proctor came in, and he's an okay target man, but he only played 16 games when you look back at it. He got 4 goals, and 2 of them came in the last game.
I always defend Proctor.
I know. I do agree. He's a decent player. He just was the wrong player.
He was the wrong player at the wrong time.
Yeah, basically, he's still a good footballer. He just didn't. He wasn't the player we needed.
I would like to have seen Proctor beside Wyke, because Proctor is very good in the air and holding it up, and Charlie Wyke was often probably the closest we had to an Ian Stevens type.
And Wyke looked pretty good when Jabbo was fit and able to play alongside him and support him. But obviously towards the end, Jabbo wasn't playing as much, was he?
Yeah.
I mean, we saw the big difference when he came back towards the end of that season, didn't we, with Jabbo? And he lifted us a little bit more. And then he got knocked, didn't he? And he missed. Did he miss the playoffs, I think? I can't remember. I seem to remember he didn't play in those playoff games, did he? And I think that was the point where we were all like, just not quite... Yeah. Not going to quite make it. Regan, I think we both agree we're better placed basically to deal with that issue in the future. So I don't foresee a collapse in the same way we had a collapse in that season. I hope. Touch wood. Yeah, I don't want to mess anything up there. I think that's it then, Dan, isn't it, for the match review bit? We're not a massive amount to talk about with it, really. It was just one of those days, isn't it? It's not a bad performance, not a brilliant performance.
Results elsewhere went our way, so we didn't lose too much ground.
Yeah, it's a shame we couldn't have taken advantage, but we didn't lose out, really, so that's the important thing. Okay, then, that's the end of part 1. We're going to part 2 next, where we'll be focusing on the visit of former Premier League side Bolton Wanderers to Brunton Park. We'll be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone, and we're into part 2 now, where we're looking ahead to the first of our festive fixtures as the former Premier League side Bolton Wanderers make the trip to Brunton Park for a competitive fixture for the first time in 32 years. We did play against them in the meantime between that, though, didn't we? We played against them in a friendly to open the stand, wasn't it? I think it was. Yes,
I was also at that last time they were here in 88.
88, yeah.
Got beat 2-0.
Yep, you're jumping ahead in the running order. I've got that when we last met. It is quite incredible what's happened with them in the last few years, isn't it? It's such a fall from grace from a team that was absolutely flying to one that, they're struggling to get into the top half of league with it too.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Bolton fans could probably write a book on what's happened. Without going into too much detail, there seems to have been all sorts of kerfuffle, serious mismanagement, and as usual, it's the fans who feel it the most because, you know, whether they're the permanent Premier League fixtures, open to debate, but they're certainly a top end of the Championship team, you know.
I mean, they're a famous historic club with a lot of history. When you look, I mean, I was doing the history and facts bit for this. There's a hell of a lot in there, stuff you don't realise about them as well.
You know, they've got a fairly modern ground in the Reebok, as everyone calls it. I know it's not called that now, but
this is the thing with the sponsorships. The first sponsorship deal is always the biggest one because that's the name that everybody remembers. No one ever calls it what it was before that, or after that even.
I'll just going off tangent there. Whenever I get the train to Newcastle, I always think, yep, there's the Sports Direct Arena.
They'll love that one, won't they?
Yeah.
But there you go. Haven't got any referee news yet because it's not been published on the EFL website. It's ridiculous that 3 days before. Normally it's up at the start of the week, really. So.
It's probably gone up as we've recorded. Usually does.
Oh, it'd be sod's law, it'd be typical. So obviously it's Boxing Day, 3 o'clock kickoff. Let's get on to some of the history and facts about Bolton Wanderers. So Bolton Wanderers were founded by the Reverend Thomas Ogden, the schoolmaster at Christchurch in 1874 as Christchurch FC. Once again, it's all about religion and football at the moment, isn't it? It's incredible.
Mad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite weird.
Do you know something? When I'm bored over Christmas and New Year, I'm going to see how many teams of the 92 were formed from a church connection.
You get a lot of church connections. A lot of cricket clubs, weren't they, where they wanted something else to play in the winter months. Yeah. It was initially run from the church of the same name on Dean Road, Bolton. The club left the location following a dispute with the vicar. They always fall out with him in the end, don't they?
Yeah,
it's incredible. And they changed the name to Bolton Wanderers in 1877. The name was chosen as the club initially had significant difficulty in finding a permanent ground to play on, having used 3 venues in the first 4 years of their existence. So quite an apt name, really. There's not many other Wanderers. There was Wanderers FC, wasn't it? That won the FA Cup and whatnot. But as you know from your pointless appearance, but I can't think of many other Wanderers about. Can you really? Because I think they sing "We are the only one and only Wanderers," don't they? So I don't think there's any others with that name. In 1888, they became a part of history as one of the founding.
Whoa! Wickham.
What? Of course. Yeah, well remember that. I don't know why I completely forgot the Wickham Wanderers. There you go. All right, there's 2 Wanderers.
3.
3. 2 more Wanderers, what I meant. Anyway, thank you for correcting me there.
Just came to me there when
I know.
I'm just thinking.
I was ratcheting my brains through as well. It's one of those ones, isn't it? In 1888, they became a part of history as one of the founder members of the Football League, alongside Accrington FC, Aston Villa, Blackburn Rovers, Burnley, Derby County, Everton, Notts County, Preston North End, Stoke City, West Bromwich Albion and Wolverhampton Wanderers right in front of my eyes. I'm looking at it. It's interesting when you look back at that first season of the Football League. It basically was the North West and Midlands Football League, wasn't it?
The Midlands upwards, wasn't it? Yeah,
basically. And there was nothing from the North East or Yorkshire, really, was there? It was just Lancashire, basically. They finished in 5th place, but went into the record books as the first team to score a goal in the Football League, thanks to forward Kenny Davenport's strike against Derby County. I should know that when I corrected myself there, Accrington FC is a different club to Accrington Stanley, isn't it? They were one of the founder members. Yeah. Accrington Stanley was formed in the 60s, I think it was. So the Trotters have spent 73 seasons in the top flight. No club has spent more time in the top division without winning the title than them. That's quite a record to have, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it's a good one, that,
yeah. Well, they've never won the title. They have won the FA Cup on 4 occasions in 1923, 1926, 1929 and 1958. That first win was the first final to be held at the Wembley Stadium.
The White Horse Stadium.
The White Horse
game, wasn't it?
The White Horse game against West Ham United, wasn't it? I think 120,000 were in that day, didn't they? Or something like that. Or even
and
more,
the rest. It's a bit like our Boxing Day fixture against Bury that was down as 12,500 when there was about 16,000 in the ground that day.
It was ridiculous, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I remember my first ever game, that one. They've won it on 4 occasions. That 1958 one was they played against Man United in the final, didn't they? Man United basically had a makeshift team, didn't they, after the Munich air disaster.
Yeah.
They generally wear white shirts and navy shorts these days, but they've had some jazzy early kits, haven't they? I was looking back at these before.
A lovely polka dot number one.
Yeah, very lovely. It's like the is that the King of the Mountains one?
Yeah, King of the Mountains. Yeah,
it was a lovely little number, that one. And a few look like a barbershop quartet shirts, don't they? With the red, navy blue and white stripes on them. Brilliant. Before this season, they'd only spent one campaign in the fourth tier in 1987-88, where they were promoted back to the third division at the first attempt. Their most successful modern era came under the management of Sam Allardyce, and his assistant was Neil MacDonald, of course. They moved to the University of Bolton Stadium, aka the Reebok/Macron Stadium, in 1997, leaving Brunton Park after 102 years.
A ground that Carlisle haven't played at yet.
No, it's interesting, isn't it? It's one of the few. It's like the JGB or DW, whatever you want to call it. Wigan, never played there yet, have we? Over the last few seasons, the club has moved from one farce to another off the pitch, barely managing to put a rescue package together in time last summer to keep the club alive. And I mean, last summer they missed the first few games, didn't they? While they were still sorting that out. And
they very nearly went the same way as Bury, didn't they? But
it's incredible. I mean, you got to remember, this is only 12 years ago. They beat Atletico Madrid in the round of 32 of the UEFA Cup.
Yeah.
And they drew 2-2 with Bayern Munich that same season.
Yeah.
It's astonishing when you look back at how much they've fallen down at that time, really, isn't it?
Right, celebrity fans, and I would say this is probably our strongest lineup of the season, and it will be hard to be beaten. Everyone knows these people. We've got Peter Kay, Phoenix Knights car share. Paddy McGuinness, Phoenix Knights Take Me Out. Vernon Kay, no relation.
Yep.
Formerly of T4, Family Fortunes and various others.
In the jungle.
Boxer Amir Khan is a Boltonian.
Yep.
And my favourite one, Crackerjack's very own Stu Francis.
Superb. Absolutely superb. That is a good set, to be fair. I still think Tranmere is better. After you're not going to be half man, half biscuit, Ray Stubbs and Hyacinth Bouquet, are you? Really?
It's between them two, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think at the end of the season we'll do a little Twitter poll over which team had the best celeb fans.
Yeah. And the teams who didn't have any just
they don't get in.
No, exactly. Interesting, the head-to-head. We're ahead on this. I was quite surprised when I saw this. I was expecting us to be, them to have like 15 and us to have about 3 or something, but we've won 11, drawn 6 and lost 10. It's quite a decent record, isn't it? I mean, mostly probably played at the second division level, I think. And the first time we played them was in the 1930s in an FA Cup game. We lost 1-0 at Brunton Park. But we've only lost twice to them at Brunton Park, one of which obviously was the last time we met in 1988. So back in March 1988, Wanderers came to Brunton Park looking to cement their push to win promotion back to Division 3 at the first attempt. They came away with a 2-0 win in front of a crowd of just 2,796, of which one of them was you, Dan.
Yeah, that was...
desperate times.
Let me just get this right. Yeah, it was my third season. 85-86, we got relegated out what's now the Championship. 86-87, we got relegated out what's now League One. And I think we finished 23rd in what is League Two now at the end of this season. So we did
indeed. We finished second bottom that season. Bolton finished third behind second place Cardiff City and champions Wolverhampton Wanderers. Incredible, isn't it? Those three were in the third division together that season, really, isn't it? I know Cardiff were down that level a bit more often than the other two, but still quite ridiculous. Let's get into present day then, Dan. So I think there was big expectations, especially from us. We had them down as pretty much champions, didn't we? I think in our preseason predictions, because there was a big recruitment drive and the appointment of an upcoming and highly rated manager. But it's been a real slog for them, hasn't it? They've found it really tough.
I think the problem they've had, and this is something that Ian Everett's alluded to, they've just had that big a turnover. It's just taken a bit of time more. Was it 21, 22 players assigned?
Well, we signed plenty of players in the summer. We had pretty much a big turnaround. Sometimes it's not just a case of signing all the big names, is it? It's sometimes getting the right names in. And it's interesting, obviously, that they went, I don't know if they went all out, but they obviously outbid us to get Gethin Jones as a signing. Would you swap him for George Tanner now?
I wouldn't. No, but I'm Tanner's number one fan, so...
No, there's not a chance I would swap the two of them. But yes, I mean, they're struggling to get themselves in the top half, never mind the promotion battle at the moment. And they currently find themselves in 15th place in the division on 25 points with a record of played 19, won 7, drawn 4, lost 8, for 22 goals against 29 goals and a goal difference of -7. There were some promising signs from a few weeks ago, wasn't there? That they might be starting to just hit the right level of form and move up the table, but they've slipped back into bad habits and dropped back down the form table. In the last 6 games, they've won 3 and lost 3. So
I was just going to say, inconsistency is their middle name at the moment, isn't it?
They just can't seem to find the form. I mean, last time out, they suffered a heavy 3-0 home defeat to Tranmere Rovers, who, of course, are led by their former manager, Keith Hill, aren't they? So I'm sure he'll have enjoyed that result.
Oh, definitely.
The game prior to that saw them grab a late 1-0 win at promotion contenders Cheltenham Town, who really are slipping up a bit as well recently, aren't they? And they're struggling. I mean, manager, we mentioned it there, obviously, Ian Evatt. A familiar name to United fans who listen to games on BBC Radio Cumbria. Evatt, I think we both agree, did a pretty remarkable job at Barrow on a not much of a budget to get them promoted back to the Football League for the first time in almost 50 years. But he was pretty quick to jump ship, wasn't he? And when the opportunity came at the University of Bolton Stadium, wasn't he? He didn't really wait around very long, did he?
I would say, was it a 3-year contract on considerably more money?
Yeah.
Knowing that if you fail, you
can just paid out.
You've got an excuse anyway because Bolton was such a mess.
Yeah, he'd probably get another League 2 job easily enough if
I do find it funny, mind, when just going back to Barrow, when their chairman was on the other week talking about Dunn leaving, how it wasn't Ian Evatt, it was just Evatt. Just Evatt. There was, I don't think he'll be welcome back.
No, I don't think he's overly popular in terms of that. Not really been plain selling for him so far. He's found it tough to get the best out of an expensively assembled squad, and he's come under a bit of criticism, hasn't he, for his man management of players, particularly the way he treated the young lad they've got on loan, the keeper from Fleetwood, Billy Collin, I think it is.
Yeah, and then he saved a penalty next game, didn't he?
Yeah, it's one of those ones, I say, that motivated him, but I don't think going like that in him, a young lad like that on the radio, was 18, 19 or something like that. A goalkeeper as well. If Beach had done that, I think our fans would be hammering him, and rightly. Yeah. I think it's not really a way you're going to build a young lad's confidence up. And I can't imagine Joey Barton was very happy after that one, really, there in terms of what Evatt did. Still time to turn things around, but I think if he fails to get promotion this season, you'd imagine he'd probably be sacked, wouldn't he?
I don't know. I mean, the fact is,
unless they can play really good football, I think he. The fact he's got a 3-year contract, and with how things have been this season, with all the COVID stuff, I think he'd get a second chance for the next season. Yeah. I also wonder if, as part of his thing, he said, "Look, it may take a season to steady this ship." Yeah, Yeah, I mean, it took him a while to get Barrow going, really, when you look back at it. He had one season, didn't he, where he got them settled, and then the second season, they were brilliant. So maybe they will look at that. But Bolton are a massive club, and they really should be up there with the squad. I mean, let's get onto it now. I mean, the squad, I mean, as you'd expect, there's plenty of quality throughout it, isn't it? I mean, the amount they spent in terms of wages, it really should be. But actually, when you look back at it, is it a little bit thin in a few areas? I wonder if defensively it doesn't look quite as strong as the other areas. When
we're going to come on to the ex-Carlisle things, but the one that raised eyebrows is when Arthur Gnauer signed for them, and a lot of Carlisle fans were like, "Really?"
I wonder if that I mean, that's just filling a space, isn't it? Really, as much as anything. That's just cover in the same way of Sean Miller as well. That as well. But yeah, it's. I don't know. I just had a look at the squad today, and I was thinking. Defensively, you've got Alex Baptiste in there, you've got George Taft who knows this level, but the rest of them, I look at them and thinking, nothing really there that makes me think, oh God, I wish he was playing for us. Geffin Jones, like I said, good player, but I wouldn't swap him for George Tanner now.
No.
They've got that lad, haven't they, that Ricardo Santos, who was at Barnet last season, and there was some of their fans saying, there's not a better centre-back in the division than this lad. Well, my first thoughts are then he's clearly not watched our defence because we've got arguably 3 better than him.
Yeah,
in ours. And then he had an absolute stinker against Port Vale, didn't he, in that mental game they had. I wonder if their expectations of how good some of their players are at this level are a little bit overinflated. I mean, I picked out the key man, I think. I think goalkeeper Matt Gilks actually is a real key one in there. Because obviously you mentioned there the lad Krellin, who's on loan from Fleetwood. He's only 20 years old. Very highly thought. I think he's the England Youth International, possibly.
Yeah.
With Matt Gilks, he's 38. And he's been around the block. I remember him making his debut for Rochdale 20 odd years ago.
Yeah.
Against us. So, he's a good player. And he knows what he's doing, doesn't he? In defence, I picked out Santos because they seem to think he's the main man, their fans. I'm not convinced myself. The player who was at Barnet last season is going to be the start one for them, but there you go. A midfield, the obvious one who stands out there, isn't it? It's Anthony Sarcevic. Quality player. I would have quite happily had him with us.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I mean, when he was at Fleetwood, he always tortured us when we played them, and he did well at Plymouth, and he's doing well at Bolton again.
Yeah. Up front, it's got to be Owen Doyle, isn't it? Although I'd say Nathan Del Fuenzo as well.
It's not a bad couple of strikers to have in League Two, is it?
Not bad at all. And you got Sean Miller coming off the bench. We know can chip in with a few and do a job coming on the Harry and plays late on.
Yeah. We've mentioned all the ex-Blues because you've put 5, but really it's 4.5, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it is. I mean, so the 5 ex-United players, you've got Gethin Jones, we've obviously mentioned already. Sean Miller, we've mentioned. Again, he's just a squad player, really, isn't he? Brandon Comley, obviously, was on loan under Curl, was that, I think?
From QPR, yeah.
QPR, yeah. Arthur Ganoa, and then obviously Tom White, who some fans might not remember, but he was in our youth setup, left to go to Gateshead. We nearly signed him again last season, didn't we? Yeah. He ended up going to Blackburn, sitting there under 23s, and go on loan to Barrow and to Bolton now. It's weird, that, isn't it? A club like Blackburn's signing players just to fill spaces in there under 23s, but there you go. Yeah. But yeah, so plenty of Action United players there. Let's do predictions this one. We're not going to do team news till after we've done the Harrogate stuff. So predictions, Dan?
I'll go for a 2-0 win.
You know what? I'm going to agree with you there. I think 2-0 win. I just feel confident on this one. I think get Bennett to do a number on Owen Doyle.
Yeah.
Get Hayden to keep an eye on Del Fuenzo. The rest of the team, I won't say I'm not worried about it because there is quality there, and on the day that they will cause us a lot of problems. But if we keep playing at the level we are, we didn't drop off against Forest Green. I think we'll win 2-0. Are you going to go for goals?
I'm going to go for Big John to get one on his return and Amari Patrick.
Okay. I'm going to give you, I think, John Mellish will get one of them. And I think the other one will be Coyote. I fancy Coyote to get back on the score sheet as well. Okay, Dan, that's part 2 done. We're going to have a third part of this episode because we've got so much to fit in. Next up, we're going to look at the game against Harrogate 3 days after the Bolton game. So we'll be back in a sec. Okay, welcome back everyone. We're into part 3 now, where we're going to be looking ahead to the second of our Christmas week fixtures, and this time it's a short trip over the Pennines and into Yorkshire for our first ever competitive, in fact, I think first ever fixture against Harrogate Town. Dan, I don't recall us ever playing them before, do you?
Off the top of my head, no.
We should have asked Jeff Jackson about this, shouldn't we, really?
Yeah.
He would know. You'd ask him straight away and say, we played them in a friendly in 1997 or something like that. He'd be able to tell you. But it's a real shame though, isn't it, that fans aren't going to be at this one, because I think a lot of fans were looking forward to this because it's a quite short trip, isn't it, in a nice little day out in Yorkshire, but it's been robbed from us, unfortunately. And
no visit to Betty's tea room.
Absolutely devastated about that. That's the bit I think I'm most gutted about. But yeah, it's interesting. They're quite a surprise team to get promoted last season, but fair play. They've done pretty well so far this season, haven't they? They've settled into League Two a lot better than Barrow have, anyway. Put it that way. Struggling a little bit recently, but they've given themselves a cushion, haven't they?
Yeah.
That's
well, let's be honest. If last season continued, Barrow still had to go to Harrogate, and having watched Harrogate in the playoff final, I think Harrogate would have won the league, to be quite honest.
Do you think?
Yeah.
And they still had the FA Trophy, didn't they, I think?
Yeah.
To play as well. So this one kicks off on Tuesday the 29th. It's a 7:45 kickoff. I'm fairly certain on that one. I've not seen it at 7 p.m. anywhere.
I'm not seeing it change anywhere.
No, so I think it's a 7:45 kickoff. I mean, it's not far to travel, is it? So I can't imagine they'd want to change it. So let's get into the history and facts. So Harrogate Town were formed in 1914 as Harrogate AFC. The club was due to play its first fixtures in the 1914-15 season. However, due to the Great War, all games were postponed before fixture could take place. Harrogate should have actually played Bishop Auckland on the Saturday the 5th of September, but sent a telegram 2 hours before kickoff stating they would not be arriving as most of the team had left to join the regiments. That's typical, isn't it? Why can't you field the team? Well, they've gone to the war. Fair enough.
Fair dues.
Because I think we might have actually played them, the original Harrogate AFC, possibly in the Northern League, maybe.
Yeah.
Back in the day, because I think that's one of the leagues we played in. We might be in Lancashire at this time, because we flipped between the two, didn't we, really, for a few years?
Yeah.
So the team was disbanded in 1932 but reformed in 1935 under the name Harrogate Hotspurs. Interestingly, the only other Hotspurs I've ever heard of in football, at least anyway. I never even realised that. The club's name was switched to Harrogate Town in 1948. The club's nicknamed Town, but also the Sulpherites, due to Harrogate's famous sulphur springs. Interesting one. That's probably one of the most unique nicknames in football, I'd say. They spent most of their early existence playing in local Yorkshire leagues before working their way up the North East counties and Unibond leagues in the 80s and 90s. Their fortunes changed when the club was taken over in 2012 by Irving Weaver, who is the father of the club's manager, Simon. Should point out here, it's not a case of he took over the club and gave Simon the job, is it? He had been in the job for 3 years before that. He'd earned his stripes, I think it's fair to say. I think he basically came in to sort of, not maybe save the club, but keep the club going at a decent level, I think, at least. Because I think around about that time, or maybe before that, they were having some real ding-dong battles with Harrogate Railway, weren't they? Harrogate Railway Athletic were similar level to them at that time, which is quite bizarre. You don't see that very often. Two non-league clubs in one town at a very similar level. After earning promotion via the National League North playoffs in 2018, it took them just 2 seasons to earn promotion to the league, beating Notts County in the final at Wembley this summer, which, as you mentioned, Dan, a game they thoroughly deserved to win against a decent Notts County side. Yeah,
they absolutely bossed that game from memory.
They certainly are a decent team. I mean, from speaking to people who watch non-league football regularly, say, they're a really well-run outfit at the very least. So Come on, celeb fans.
Well, we've only found a couple, but they're both England level, although not in the same sport.
I'm not convinced about these two being their celeb fans. I think.
No.
Two have turned up to games, I think. But there you go.
Well, that makes them a fan then.
All right, I'll let you
know. Well, the first one is former England and Leeds United goalkeeper Nigel Martin.
One of the few people from Cornwall to have played for England.
And who is now a regular in one of the North Yorkshire cricket leagues in the summer.
Is he? Oh,
as a wicket keeper as well.
Yeah, he also famously didn't realise on Twitter that if you like something, people can go on your profile and look at your likes.
Yeah.
And he liked something a little bit naughty. And didn't realise, and people were like, look what Nigel Martin's liked. Be careful what you like on Twitter. That's my advice for today.
And the second one is long curly-haired England seam bowler Ryan Sidebottom.
I'm glad you read that out, because I would have said Frank Sidebottom there if it'd been me. Blimey.
To be fair, with the amount of hair he had, his head wasn't far off the sides of Frank Sidebottom.
No, it wasn't, was it? Interesting, that fair play.
And he's been spotted taking his lad to matches, so he definitely counts for me.
Well, there you go. I'm guessing maybe one of those ones where maybe cheaper to go there and to go to watch Leeds, because I think he might be a Leeds fan. I could be wrong on that one.
I think towns like Harrogate, there's always going to be a Leeds United. I
think you find a lot of players who played for Leeds or played around in that area end up living in that sort of area, because Harrogate's quite a nice town. So.
But no, like a lot of these smaller towns, the likes of Ossett and Harrogate, and there's a big Leeds United fan base there, and you will get people who follow both, etc.
Exactly. Head to head, and last time we met, well, nothing to tell you because we've not played them yet. It's the first time we've played a new team since Salford last season, I think it was.
Yeah.
And before that, I can't think when the last time we played a team for the first time would have been.
Would it have been someone like maybe one of the London area non-league clubs or something?
Possibly. We played Crawley in the non-league, didn't we? We played Dagenham in non-league, so interesting. That would be interesting one to look up and work out the last time we played somewhere we never played before in a game. Well, let's get into the general preview chat. Like I said, this section is not quite as long as the Bolton one because I think there was a lot more to talk about in terms of Bolton. Okay, so having only just secured promotion to the league on the 2nd of August here, I don't think there was massive expectations for them this season, but they've surprised many with their start, finding themselves in the playoff positions early on in the season. I think I predicted them as a dark horse, I think, in our pre-season predictions. I'm not 100% on that one, I can't remember, but I think I did. So I was quite pleased when they were doing all right at the start of the campaign. But in recent weeks, though, unsurprisingly, form has dropped off and they found themselves dropping down the table a bit. They've got, I mean, we'll get onto it anyway, but they've got quite a thin squad. When you look at all the other squads in League Two, it's a small squad. There's not many players in there, is there?
Yeah.
It's quite telling that. They currently find themselves in 17th place in the division on 22 points with a record of played 19, won 6, drawn 4, lost 9. They've scored 19 goals, they've conceded 23 and got a goal difference of -4. Their current form's not particularly great, as we said there. They've won 2 and lost 4 in their last 6 games. Last time out, they suffered a narrow 1-0 home defeat to big spending Salford City. In the previous fixture, they earned a surprise 2-1 win at free score in Exeter. That was a bit of a shock result, but Exeter have had a few iffy results lately as well, haven't they, I think, in a couple of games?
There's been quite a few of these sort of results recently, hasn't there? You know, it's... I think it's something we're going to see for the rest of the season, just because it's so condensed and there's been that much football that...
The only two who haven't really had any like that is probably us and Forest Green, really.
Yeah,
We're two of the most consistent sides in the division, and the fact that it was only a 1-0 win to Forest Green the weekend probably tells you that, really, doesn't it? So let's go on to the manager. So that's Simon Weaver. Yes, as we mentioned there, he is the owner's son, but he earned the job in his own right before his dad took the reins at Weatherby Road. A solid defender in his play. Now, they've been playing for Lincoln City. He was in that Keith Alexander side, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was just basically like anyone who thinks we've got a big team now, I'll tell them go back and watch Lincoln City's team from the early noughties.
It's like the land of the giants, wasn't it?
Jamie McComb, Weaver. Who else did they have? There's some really, really big lads now. Gareth Macaulay was there, wasn't he, I think?
Yeah.
And they were basically just big lads, and they played very direct. And hey, they were
the old air raid side and used to go off for the corner.
And Keith Alexander, God rest his soul, with his tracky bottoms of his big long socks tucked up over them. He was a man of fashion before Paul Tisdale came into the game, wasn't he?
Yeah, definitely.
What a guy. So he's done a solid job. I think a decent job with not a massive budget there. I think he deserves a lot of credit really for him. I mean, it's quite telling. Him and Everett, two managers, have done really well on not massive budgets. When you look at some of the teams, I mean, look at what John Sheridan did at Chesterfield last season.
Yeah,
the absolute mess he made of that. And even Notts County still struggling to get themselves back in the league. You've got to give him both of them credit, I think, and I don't think it's likely he's going to be getting the vote of confidence from his dad anytime soon, is it? I think whatever happens, he's likely to stay in that job for quite a while to go now, I think. Probably one of the smaller squads in the division and not really packed with experience, but I think it is a testament to the work that Weaver's done, that they've done so well so far. I mean,
yeah.
When you look down through the squad, I mean, I was picking out my key men in house, struggling a little bit because I don't recognise many of the names.
There's one name stands out on the list, and that's John Stead, isn't it?
Straight away he stands out as one of your key men. Jack Muldoon's done really well for them this season. I think he's got a few goals, so he's taken to the league really well. But like I said, when you look through the squad, I don't recognise him. I mean, I don't know League Two as well as I used to back in the day, but even I would look through most squads and say, I recognise him. Well, I look through this, and
one name that did stand out was Conor Kirby, but that's only because we were rumoured to be sniffing about him when he left Chef Wed.
Yeah, I think he's one who stands out. Dan Jones, who was he at Barrow, I think, a few years ago, when he was at Salford. That's where they signed him from. I'm not 100% on that one.
And the obvious other one, who is also the former Carlisle link, is Mark Beck.
Yeah, he's done fair play to the lad. He's done well for himself. And he's well liked there by all accounts, and he doesn't score as many maybe as Muldoon, but he basically is the target man, isn't he? I think he starts ahead of Stead most weeks. I think Stead's basically brought on late on, isn't he, when he tires out a bit.
Stead will be an excellent person to learn from in training.
Perfect for him, isn't he? To be fair, he's still only 26, Beck. He's still got plenty of time to do well in his career, so fair play to the lad. As you mentioned there, obviously Mark Beck is the link with us. The other link is obviously ex-Blues captain and the man who we saw on the greatest tattoo in history, and we still haven't tracked that fella down. Paul Thurwell.
Please, if you're listening, give us a Christmas present.
Someone must know him. Come on.
Introduce yourself. Contact us.
He drinks in the Cali. He'll be some sort of reprobate. Come on, get him on.
We want to hear the story behind the Paul Thurwell tattoo.
I think it basically is just, it was the picture of the start from when they basically they took the photos to promote the new kit, didn't they? And I think that was the photo was used essentially. But you could have just had the kit done, but you said like, no, I just want Paul Thurwell as well. I want rather than a random pretend player or something like that. I don't know. Paul Thurwell is. I think he's assistant manager there. He's definitely on the coaching staff at least anyway, and he's starting off his career as coach, doing pretty well. Okay, let's get on to team. Before we do predictions for this one, let's do some team news, Dan. So it's annoyingly, it's getting quite busy in this team news section now, isn't it? It's been quiet for a while, and suddenly the lot turning up. I think we expected that, though, didn't we? At this stage of the season. So the two obvious ones: George Tanner with collarbone and Danny Devine with his knee will miss out this game due to injury. It looks like Tanner possibly February. I think that it seems he might come back.
I would think end of January, early February. It's normally about 6 to 8 weeks for a collarbone.
Yeah,
so
it's not as bad as the one that
Ethan Walker
had. But Ethan Walker's had one before, hasn't he? Which I think was part of the problem.
I think he's had it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, Danny Devine, he's possibly going to have an operation.
Yeah, Beach was suggesting it might be just a bit more than the physio needing to have a little fiddle with it, and he could possibly have a minor operation.
Yeah, it's a real shame that, because he was doing so well, wasn't he? He got into the team and he showed himself a useful player, but I'm sure he'll come back just as strong. Good news though, John Mellish will return after his 1-game ban for 5 yellow cards, and no other players got any bookings, so we don't have any threat of a booking now until someone gets to 10 cards, which 10 is
cards now, isn't
32 games, which I think if no games were called off, that would be the Oldham Athletic game or the Sulphur game. I can't remember which one it is. I think it's the Oldham game. Yeah. Possibly. But anyway, the 32nd game basically is when the 10 game cut-off is. And then after that, you have to get to 15 to get free. And if you're getting 15 bookings in a season, you're doing pretty well, to be fair. But yeah, so John Mellish is back. Rod McDonald, he returned for the reserve trip to Rochdale. He'll be in contention for place in the matchday squad. Be interesting to see if Hunt is actually dropped or not. Interesting, Hunt didn't feature, did he? I think against Rochdale. It just occurred to me that actually. That's an interesting one. I wonder if they were that keen to get Wilson, a bit of Tom Wilson as the first year white player, because he's been out injured for a long time, so they might want to get minutes into him as well. Charters, as we mentioned, impressed in that game. I'd imagine he's probably going to keep his place on the bench, because it seems Beach is really happy with the way he's developing at the moment. Other than that, it's just the same ones as before, isn't it? The Dickinson and Walker are still in the last stages of their recovery, and Conor Malley, similar. I don't think we're going to see Conor Malley play for us again, to be honest. If I was going to make a prediction, I think he's going back.
I think Dickinson, probably, once we get these 2 or 3 games out of the way, I think we'll probably see Dickinson appear. It'll be almost like a new signing, won't it?
It's just brilliant. When you think a lot of other clubs are going to be desperate to try and get players in January, well, we're effectively just getting one fresh. Having played no games, he can play as much as he needs to from that point on. So I genuinely think it's great news, that, isn't it, that he's potentially coming back. Right, predictions.
Well, this is the sort of game we should be, if we're going to be serious in the second half of the season about going up, it's a game we should be looking to win. So I'm going to go for 2-0 again. I'm
going to go for 3. I think we're boosted by the company. We might even get 4,
Oh.
Or do I go ambitious? I'm going to go 4 now. I'm going to go ambitious. I think with the confidence of the win against Bolton, I just think Harrogate are just slipping off a bit now, and I think they're going to find it tough.
I'm going to go for an Aaron Hayden header from a set piece, and Lewis and Lisandra.
Yeah, very good. I'm going to go for Hayden goal as well. You're going to get a header. I also fancy Joe Riley to get another goal. And I fancy Patrick and Gibby Turry to get his first league goal as well. So I'm going for my 4-0, which is going to look incredibly stupid now when we lose that game probably. You know, I just realised there we didn't mention the fact that Harrogate, obviously, one of the things they had to do before the start of the season to get themselves sorted was change the pitch at their ground, didn't they? Because they had a 4G pitch there, didn't they, which they played in last season.
Played the first handful of games at Doncaster, didn't they?
Yeah, didn't do them any harm. They seem to have struggled more when they moved back, haven't they? They've had to deal with that pitch. That's an interesting one. That, and obviously as well, something we forgot to mention last week in the Forest Green one was we missed a really good celebrity fan, didn't we?
We did,
Jilly Cooper.
Yeah.
I can't believe we didn't get that one before. I'm gutted. We had that pointed out to us by the guys at the Heavens Devils podcast.
Do you read many of her books, like?
Oh, I'm a huge fan. Bookshelves full of them.
Yeah.
It's creaking from the weight.
Yeah.
But there you go. Yeah, Dan, so let's move then on to the final section. Obviously, that's the X-Files. I think actually, I thought that one was quite quiet, but actually, that's from left over from last week. I think there was a few this week, wasn't there?
I've just pulled it up from the WhatsApp we have where we keep all this info. Saturday, we saw John O'Sullivan score for Morecambe, David Amu for Port Vale, Darryl Duffy got another for Stranraer, and Cole Stockton also scored in the Morecambe game, but it was in the wrong goal.
Yeah, it was indeed.
Then on to Sunday, Sam Cosgrove scored for Aberdeen.
Yeah.
That'll be good, hopefully hitting some form before a potential move in January.
You'd hope so.
And then in the Man United Leeds game, former loanee Liam Cooper scored late on for Leeds, and that meant he scored in all 4 divisions now.
Yep.
He scored in League 2 for Chesterfield, League 1 for Carlisle, and then the Premier League and Championship for Leeds.
Yeah, quite an achievement, that.
Just as we were getting ready to record, former trialist who we should have signed, Lawrence Shankland, scored tonight.
You'll never let that one drop, will you?
No.
Till the day you die, you'll still remember the
Shankland and Cosgrove would have took us up.
Probably not, but there you go. They'd have probably been awful if we'd signed them. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It'd be sod's law, wouldn't it? I think that's it for this week then. Dan, it's been a bit of a bumper
quite a
one.
big one, yeah.
Quite a big one. Thanks once again for joining me. It's always appreciated.
No,
we have a good catch-up. Nice to have a little pre-Christmas catch-up at least as well.
Yeah.
I think we all basically just have to really enjoy this Bolton game, don't we? Because I think there's a genuine risk to it. Things are going to drop.
I know we mentioned it at the start of the show, but the Director of Public Health, whatever it is called in Cumbria, is suggesting that if the rate continues to go up, we could end up going to Tier 3, which unfortunately would be no crowds. And as we've already said, it wouldn't be a surprise if there's a full lockdown again.
I can see it coming. I can't see anything other than that.
We've just got to take it as it comes at the moment, haven't we?
Yeah, it's just the way it is.
And sadly, it'll be back to iFollow, won't it?
It will. So yeah, our advice to everyone is just if you go into that game, behave yourselves, do everything that you're told in terms of sticking to all the regulations, everything, and just enjoy the game.
Regarding that, it's interesting that Barrow reduced their capacity by 100 because of that at the weekend.
You said
apparently it started bucketing down, and as is natural, fans went to the covered part and became too crowded, so they've knocked 100 off. It's
interesting that it's a good sign of how well behaved our fans are, because when that happened against Mansfield, I think it was, no one moved. Everyone stayed in their blocks in the paddock. I'm glad,
isn't it?
I'm glad to say that I picked a block which is covered in the paddock this season. So me and Greg were looking up and saying, yep, that's good. Good to see there's no rain coming on us.
But that's Southerners for you, us Northerners.
It is indeed. If you've got any comments or feedback or anything you'd like to suggest we discuss, please send them in via Twitter to @BruntonBugle, by email to bruntonbugle@gmail.com, or catch us on the Be Just and Fear Not Facebook group. We're always in there having a crack.
You'll also notice on our Twitter we have our new logo in place.
We have indeed. Thanks once again for that one. Really appreciate that. If you haven't already, please remember you can subscribe to the podcast via all good podcast apps, including Acast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. You name it, you'll probably be able to find it. Just search for Brunton Bugle, and if you can't find it, like I said before, messages, and we will try and get it put on there, because I know there's a few that we might not be on, so I need trying to get that sorted. As I mentioned before as well, if you can give us a review, that'd be fantastic. 5-star review would be brilliant. I really would appreciate it. Map of listeners, Dan. I can't remember if it's a new one or we've had it before, but we're back in the Rock of Gibraltar. We have 2 listens there. I think we have had them before, haven't we?
Yes, I think we have, yeah.
Not 100% on that one, but yeah, basically, Gibraltar's the only newish one on there. We've had no further listening in Bahrain again.
I actually know someone from the area who lives in Gibraltar. I wonder if it's him.
Yeah, could well be. Brunei, still got 4 listens there, and yeah, bar that, just no new countries at all, as it was.
Right. To be fair, though, there's not much travel at the moment, is there?
Exactly, that's anyone who's away
Yeah.
is going to be picking up, so a bit of a shame that, really. I think that's it, Dan, isn't it? I think, sorry, in terms of next episode, we're going to try and get one out, I think, before the Walsall game.
Yeah.
Maybe record it the day after the Harrogate game. We'll do a review of the Bolton and Harrogate matches and look ahead to the Walsall game.
If we are on lockdown, we might just do it live on New Year's Eve and get pissed as we do it or something.
Exactly, that'd be the best way of doing it, wouldn't it? But yeah, well, hopefully things will carry on okay. I have a feeling we won't, but we'll see. And like I said, we hope we're going to get plenty of content out to you in the new year as well. It's going to be a busy time, but we're going to try and get stuff out. And so all that's left to say really, Dan, is once again, thanks for joining me. Thanks everyone for listening. Have a very, very Merry Christmas. Here's to hopefully a nice late present for us all. 3 points at Brunton Park on Boxing Day. So thanks everyone for listening, and up the Blues.
Up the Blues, and Merry Christmas all.